righty, good evening, everybody. We'll get through this talking real loud tonight since our speakers are down. Welcome to our June 2023 board meeting. We're glad to see all of you guys here. Before we get started, Miss Bradford is going to say a prayer for us, and then we're going to say the pledge. So if you'll please stand.
Dear Father, please watch over our community, the students, the faculty, the parents, the friends, and all the citizens of Barrow County, which I'm so honored to serve. Please help as a board, guide us in our decision making so that we can do the best we can to make great decisions for our community and the citizens we serve. And lastly, I was reminded today that it is the 79th anniversary of D-Day, and so I'd like to say a prayer too for the brave men who died so many years ago and sacrificed their lives to rescue freedom for the rest of us. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Oh. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, at this time, we need approval of the minutes for the May 2nd.
Can you talk louder? We can't hear you.
I sure can, yes ma'am. At this time, we need approval for the minutes from the May 2nd, 2023 regular board meeting, the May 22nd, 2023 called board meeting, and the May 30th, 2023 work session and called board meeting. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Ms. Stevens first, Ms. Kelly second, all in favor? Alrighty, motion passes. Next, I will need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Beverly, Ms. Maloof, and Ms. Stevens made the second. All in favor? All right, motion passes. And then at this time, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Stevens, Ms. Bramlett, all in favor? Motion passes. All righty, do we have any reports from Building and Grounds tonight at this time? All righty. We will now move into the superintendent's recognitions.
All right. Great to see all you folks here tonight. We'll start off. I'll ask Mr. Larry Neese, lovingly known as Doc Neese, to come over to the podium, and he's got some folks to recognize tonight.
Yes, my name is Doc Neese, and I represent the Barrow County Retired Educators Association. In Barrow County Schools, we are so very fortunate to have so many excellent educators at all grade levels and in all fields. And one of the goals of the Barrow County Retired Educators Association is to support our fellow educators in their professional endeavors, and because of the generosity, very huge generosity, and donations from businesses and people of our community, we are able to offer 2 $750 scholarships to assist our Barrow County teachers in pursuing an advanced degree in education. One of the criteria on the scholarship application to be answered by the applicant was the significance of seeking the scholarship. Another was recommendation from one of the applicant's supervisors, and because of the quality of teachers who applied, it was very difficult to decide who the winners were. This year's scholarship recipients quite profoundly display a dedication to their profession and to their students. They also expressed a genuine desire for professional improvement to better themselves, their school, and thereby making them more effective in the classroom. So tonight, we would like to honor 2 scholarship winners by presenting them each with a check for $750, as well as a certificate of appreciation for all that they do and for their dedication to the Barrow County students. The teachers who were selected for these scholarships are Michelle Jacobson, a teacher at Yargo Elementary, and Andrea Smith, a teacher at Bear Creek Middle. So if those 2 young ladies will come up. Michelle. Okay. Congratulations to both of them.
Thank you so much, Doc. I know that was some hard decisions to make.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This time I'd like to have Miss Sherry Perry come up, and we have a raft of mentors to recognize tonight.
Yes, thank you so much. And I want to say that it's been a pleasure to work in the mentor program through these years. I'm really excited about the future of the program, and really pleased to be here to kind of close it out for myself as we make these transitions. Many of our mentors serve in roles besides just mentor here. They're also involved in many community activities, and so some of these names you may recognize. I'm going to call all these names, and when I call your name, please stand and remain standing for just a moment. Mary Michael Hahn, Eugene Lenartz, Tunisia Shropshire, Dustin Canarella, David Mafus, Ashley Harrington, Stacy Waters, Stephen Crayonbull, Bailey Reese, Jimmy Terrell, Maddie Lynch, Taylor Evans, Colleen Lee, Skylar Bridges, Wayne Linke, Lori Bell, Danica Borst, Kirsten Medlem, Joe Sasso, Matt Brown, Alexis Chapman, Cheryl Hurst, Samantha Nicholson Brown, Amy Rhodes, Edison Roll, Molly Morris, Rob Daggart. I happen to know he's on vacation. I saw his pictures on Facebook. Willie Bearden, Robin Williams, Ron Freed, Kelly McDaniel, Tanya Kimbrough, Amanda Stevens, and Xander Bastedo. These individuals were recommended by their school mentor coordinators for their level of dedication to the students, and they're all going to receive a certificate from the superintendent which says, for your commitment to excellence as a mentor and an appreciation of your dedication to student success, and it's signed by Dr. Chris McMichael. So, and I'm here on behalf of the mentor coordinators who serve each school, and words sometimes cannot convey how grateful we are for our mentors, but I'm going to try. We want to thank you for changing the trajectory of a child's life for the better by helping them navigate their social world among academics and all that's going on at school, for helping them explore their interests or hobbies, talking with them about colleges and careers, and helping them make their dreams a reality, for inspiring them to put their best foot forward and constantly reassuring them, for helping them harness their potential, and for going above and beyond, sometimes believing in a student until they finally believe in themselves. I want to thank you so much for your service and for your love and care for these children. Can we give them a round of applause? So thank you. I want to invite each of you to join me outside for a photo, and then you can rejoin the group.
Right. Thank you so much, and mentors, thank you so much. You really do make a difference in a child's life, and I would challenge everyone else in the audience, if you haven't been a mentor, we'd love to have you come in and mentor next year. You can contact us up here at Central Office, and we can get you signed up and into the process, and I can guarantee you there's a child out in our school system that needs you, so we'd love to have you.
Alrighty, thank you, Dr. McMichael. At this time, we do have a few requests to appear before the board. So what we'll do is I'll call you guys up one at a time. Each of you will have 3 minutes to speak. So we will start with Miss Eileen Somerville.
Good evening. When I got my tax, I hope you can hear me back there. When I got my property taxes this year, I sat myself down and I asked myself 3 questions. The first question is, why would I ever go to the Board of Education? The second question was, of what value are senior citizens who don't pay school taxes to Barrow County schools. The third question is, what resolution would I have to solve the problem of raising property taxes? The answer to the first question is, I am here because I want to encourage you and thank you for the work that you do for our schools. We have excellent schools in Barrow County, and it's not from a vacuum that they're created. You have a lot to do with that. So I want to encourage you in this time when you have to make this decision on what to do for seniors in our society here. I'm so nervous. what to do for seniors, that you make the right decision. It's a difficult choice, it's a complicated choice, and I know that because you have made right decisions before, you will follow suit. The second reason I'm here is because deep in my heart, I really believe that one person speaking out can make a difference. So normally I would never speak out, but I do believe that we can make a difference, or I can make a difference. So what is the problem that I'm here for? Well, the problem is that we have an out-of-date tax exemption policy. Our tax exemption policy for seniors has not been changed, I know, in the 18 years I've lived here, so it's probably 20 years, maybe even more. And who would have ever expected in Barrow County that the prices of homes would skyrocket the way they are doing now? Surely, when I bought my house, it went down for 3 years. So we have a problem with that. And now how do we solve that problem? What's happened because of that problem is that the seniors' houses have increased in value. So therefore, they're over the $200,000 limit for tax exemption, school tax exemption. So they're having to now pay school taxes. Okay, so what do we do about this? Well, I really have thought long and hard, because I don't like to go to somebody with a problem without a resolution handy. So I listed all these resolutions, but the very best outcome that I could see would be, there is precedent in Walton County and precedent in Gwinnett County for seniors who are over 75 years of age not having to pay permanently no school taxes, regardless of their value of their property. So I asked myself, of what value are seniors to the Barrow County school system who don't pay? Is that my thing? Okay. So.
You can finish that thought. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, who don't pay school taxes. And after much thought, I hit the mark. And the value is we pay sales taxes. And there's a difference between seniors paying sales taxes, which a percentage of goes to the schools, and people who have children in our community paying sales taxes. On the balance sheet of your corporation here, the people with students in the school system, they pay taxes, but they go out as an expenditure to support their children and fund their children that are in the school to pay for their education. Hey, like seniors pay sales taxes, but that goes to capital. There's no expenditure on that side because we don't have children. That's a real advantage, I would think, to having seniors in the community, plus all of the volunteer stuff and things they do. But we spend money in our community, and that money goes back to you guys as capital investment, whereas people with children, the money goes to you guys, and you have to right away expend it out to support their kids in the school system. Okay, good luck. And again, I want to encourage you, please, to consider, after much thought, trying to make the right decision, a wise decision for the seniors of our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Somerville. Next, we will have Ms. Goddard.
I hope this is working now. I don't have a real loud voice.
They just got
Can I
that one
hear
turned
it?
up.
Perfect time.
Okay. Well, good evening. My name is Barbara Goddard, and for the last 17 years, I resided in the village of Winder, still residing there, a senior community where the median age is 70 years plus. We've seen our retirement funds dwindle due to our longevity, medical costs, and rising costs of living across the board. Many residents are now trying to survive on their Social Security benefits. We were in shock when we received our proposed tax bill this year. It doubled from last year due to the increased value of our homes, which is a double-edged sword for the village residents. Our residents don't usually sell their homes. They move only if they go into assisted living or they die. For 15 years, qualified seniors in our community were given a 100% exemption from paying school taxes. The last 2 years reflected the removal of our senior exemption, resulting in our taxation for school taxes. This year's school tax amounted to 28% of our total property taxes. I'm going to ask a question. I don't know within this. I don't know if you can answer it, or is it proper if I have a question to ask? Well, I'll ask it and see what
Ask
happens.
it. We can
Okay.
respond via email.
All right, the state of Georgia, the HB 19 budget for 2023-24 was recently signed into law, allocating $13.1 million for education, which is an increase of $2.2 billion over the last year's budget. How much of this funding has been appropriated to Barrow County, and has it been configured in this year's budget? You're not going to answer that right now, I guess. All right. Okay, well, the school board's reinstating of the 100% senior exemption on school taxes would give seniors a much-needed relief. Thank you for your time, and we hope you hear our voices.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much, Ms. Goddard. At this time, we have Mr. Bernard Donaldson and Ann Ridgway.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Don Donaldson, and I've lived in Winder for this time since March of 2019. And when I got my tax appeal, whatever you call it, when they guess at what they want, you know. Assessment, there you go. It was, you know, it really surprised me because I didn't pay anywhere close to what they estimated my house to be, the value of the house. It's almost double, and I just bought it 4 years ago. And and I've heard, or I found out some way or other, that the Board of Education initiated an action with the University of Georgia to examine school tax processes in Barrow County relating to the economic impact of exempting senior citizens from school tax. Can you share any results, you know, or recommendations about what the answer was from the University of Georgia?
Yeah, we don't, we actually did share them, at a meeting a while back, and the board considering those as we move through, looking at what we're going to do, or what the board's going to do to help alleviate. But yeah, if you wanna contact us, we can get you a copy.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Well, I've got several things written down here, and I'll just read them off, you know, that's better than me standing up here stuttering all night. But, how does the Board of Education manage to assign a millage rate to support collection of school taxes from senior citizens of Bexar County? Is this proposed tax rate established using a percentage of the overall property tax? How do numerous other counties in Georgia exempt school taxes for senior citizens over 65 years old? You know, I don't know. Barrow County's there's a bunch of people live in Barrow County. They didn't, you know, 20 years ago, there wasn't even there was half this many 20 years ago, or less. But if everybody, you know, if everybody contributes to the school tax or whatever, and, you know, logic tells me that the more people, the more tax, and the less you have to tax each head that's in the county. But, you know, I don't know. And then my next statement here is, since an extreme number of families have moved to Barrow County in the last couple of years, and most of them have children that utilize the schools, why do they not pay school taxes? And if the majority of that influx of families are leasing the residents, why aren't schools taxes collected from the owners of those residential properties? I don't know the answer to that, but, you know, that's one way of getting more taxes for schools. Numerous schools in Barrow County have methods that add to the protection of the students by adding caution lights and cameras to monitor drivers that exceed the posted speed limits. Doesn't the BOE collect the fines that are paid by violators when speeding near a school? Does the Board of Education get those fines that are paid by violators? Hello?
So per our policy, we do not, and it was in the notes that you filled out when you requested to appear before us, we are not to respond to you during the public request to appear.
It takes away from your 3 minutes.
Right. And which you're a little over 3 minutes, so if you
Oh.
want to wrap up that last thought, we're trying to be courteous and give you as much
But
time.
if you wanna send us
Okay,
those questions,
well,
we'll be glad
that's-
to get back to you on
Yeah.
that.
Well, all I'm going to do is complain about what's happened to me in particular. My school tax went up over, well, it went from $520 to $1,660. So something's wrong with that, but, you know, and I just need help. I'm 78 years old, and I paid my share of school taxes in my life. And
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Donaldson, and at this time, we will welcome up Ms. Ridgway.
I have no notes. Just speak from the cuff. I'm 76 years old, and I disagree with paying school tax. I think I've paid my share. I think my husband and I have paid over the years, and I think that anyone that's over 67 years old should not be required to pay school tax. Now, as Don mentioned, the fines that are charged for the traffic violators during the in the school zones. I don't know about y'all, but I have made my contribution. And, I know. And because of this, I did a little research as to how much money Barrow County actually is collecting. And you're gonna be really surprised. In the county schools that Judge Smith is responsible for, just the county schools, not Statham, not the Winder City schools, over $1 million is expected to be accessible by the Board of Education this next year. So what my suggestion is, Ms. Somerville suggested, you got a question, fine, you got an answer. I got the answer. You can use that money that is collected on these fines for the replacing of the taxes that you place on the elderly. Those of us who have paid our share, done our part, been through all of the ringers, and now at our age, we don't want to have to worry about, is the taxes going up again? Are we going to be able to pay these? We have enough people to get those taxes paid, and I think there are other ways for us to go about that. Thank you for your consideration.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Ms. Ridgway. At this time, we will welcome up Ms. Susan Larson.
I do have notes. Forgive my nerves, and that I'm going to say some of the same thing. Thank you for this opportunity to state our concerns regarding the school M&O line item being added back into our 2023 property tax bill for those of us that are 62 and older. Many seniors have been doing all the right things over our lifetimes, buying a house, paying our taxes, putting our children through school, and setting ourselves up to live on these fixed incomes as we age. Many of us have paid off our mortgages too, anticipating a future of limited and fixed incomes. Because some of us are in our 80s and 90s, here in this room and in this county, and because some of us are in poor health too, going back into the workforce to generate more income in order to pay the additional tax, it's simply not an option. We respectfully request that you consider other options to raise the necessary revenue needed for the school systems. That doesn't include the present formula, which places an undue burden and a clear hardship on a population that has already paid their dues, as they have paid these taxes already for their children and oftentimes their grandchildren as well. Our income certainly did not go up in proportion to this year's tax increase. The newcomers moving into Barrow County with children in the system should be expected to pick up the much-needed revenue. Some possible suggestions: raise the appraised value of the current year's market value threshold from $200,000 to $400,000. That would make a huge difference, and then people still may request a reappraisal, but I think that would make a huge difference for many. Most of our taxes doubled, if not tripled, so it seems only reasonable that the threshold should also be part of the formula for determining that tax. 2, getting a little probably edgy on this one, but possibly look at a way to delay full payment. That may not be a possibility, but as most of us have just found out that this past month, the overage amount from last year's taxes that will be due in less than 6 months, it seems an unreasonable window for the elderly, the seniors, to come up with those funds that quickly. Perhaps the previous year's amount should be due as expected by senior homeowners on the November 15th due date, but maybe extend the remaining portion at least 30 days to December 15th if going into the next calendar year is not an option. That could at least allow homeowners to use their allotted Christmas monies to be used to pay for their tax and protect and save their homes. And maybe another one is grant a total deferment for seniors across the board for the taxes due above last year's school M&O tax until a better method of raising the revenue is determined, and then give seniors at least a year notice before you make that additional tax due. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much, Ms. Larson. At this time, we will welcome up Ms. Brenda Stansel.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. I am here due to the unexpected school tax on my tax bill, just like most everybody else. We haven't been paying them, and all of a sudden we are. Our income is not really able to pay for future generations' schooling. There's got to be another way. It's not fair, and I think everybody knows it. We paid our part, we raised our families, we did whatever we needed to do with the school and the tax, and we shouldn't have to pay these anymore, and I think everybody knows it. I request that the Board of Education consider lowering the mill rate. This probably can't be done, but what about taxing people on a per-child basis? I had one. Some of them have 10. I'm sorry. Another thing is you might ask the Board of Commissioners to put a moratorium on all new construction until the school system can catch up with the influx of additional children moving into this county. Also, that at the very least, that senior citizens who have not been paying school tax all of these years be grandfathered in, not to all of a sudden start paying them. I also am wondering why Bear County can't impose another spots tax for you all to get more money. That's way better than just taxing senior citizens. And the real point I want to make tonight is I wish that I respectfully request that the board exempt senior citizens from paying school tax, period.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stansel. Now we will welcome up Mr. Larry Wall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Give you a little background about myself. I'm a almost 77-year-old citizen of Bear County for my entire life, so I've watched the county grow, not at the rate that it's growing right now, but it's always been progressive. And we're proud of our county, and we're proud of our schools, and we thank you for the effort that you put out in service to our schools. It's a thankless job. We all recognize that. So that everybody understands, I don't know if these numbers have been put out, but at the end of the 2023 school season, there were 15,338 students, K through 12, in the Bear County schools. And that was in 18 school facilities. Now that requires, as you can well imagine, quite an outlay capital. Most of that capital comes from federal sources. We get, or have in the past, gotten large amounts of funding through the federal government, as you all know. I don't have to tell you that. But our members of the community may not realize that most of the money does come from the federal government. But we can't rely on that, because at any given time, our government is subject to changing and diminishing our income or our funding for the schools. At the end of, I went to the state's audit of the Bear County school system website, and I found that at the end of June 30th, 2022 year, there was a school board or a Bear County school system balance on hand of $71.5 million, which was an increase of $23 million over the previous year, 2021. Now, that's sounds like a lot of money, but as I said, it takes a lot to run these 18 schools. 25%, according to the website, 25% of the schools O&M last year, in that 2022 year, 25% came from property taxes and sales taxes. And that amounted to $91.7 million out of $220 million budget. I believe that's correct. At the end of that period, our school system has a period coming up ahead of us for construction. We realize that's going to be a difficult time for the county. We need to make sure that our capital funds are provided, and I suggest that instead of doing it through property taxes, that it be done through a local option, special purpose sales tax of 1%. With the county's growth as it is now, it should not have any problem in funding the county's future construction projects. I know something about that. I was a project construction manager for a large statewide corporation, and I understand how those construction budgets operate. So appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wall. At this time, we would like to welcome up Miss Nancy Shadley.
Hello. I'm probably going to repeat some of the things that's already been said, but it's already written down, so. I'm speaking for myself and for all seniors. And I have neighbors that were supposed to come tonight, and some of them couldn't make it. And I did not know until last year that the school board had set a cap of $200,000 on seniors' homes. If the value goes above $200,000, we pay school tax again. All the seniors that I have spoken to did not know this, and most of them are not physically able to come to the meetings. It's not right to treat seniors like that who have worked hard all their life, raised their children, paid taxes while they were in school, and now we are seniors on a fixed income. We should be exempt. Our income doesn't go up. We scrape and save to live and pay our bills. We have insurance on our homes and autos, groceries, gas for our car, and everything has gone up, making it tough for all on fixed income. My neighbor and I were going to appeal our taxes last year. Mine went from $809 to $1357. We were told at the tax office that we would have to meet with a judge, a lawyer, and some more people, and we would have to pay them. So we dropped the appeal. We couldn't afford that. My taxes went from $1357 last year to $2,251 this year. We have no children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren in schools. My neighbor lives alone, and so do I. There are several in my neighborhood that have lost their spouse. Our taxes went up right at $1,000, school tax, and we cannot afford that. I'm asking you to raise the cap well above our fair market value of our homes to help seniors so that we will be exempt from school tax again, or else come up with some other alternative for us to be exempt. Maybe by age, like 70 and up, just a suggestion. This subdivision was built 19 years ago, and the prices range from $134 to $149K. Mine climbed in 2021 to $188K. Then this year, they raised the value to $241K. That last year, and this year it's $330K. We did not pay those kind of prices, and something needs to be done. We are asking for your help.
Ms. Shadley. And lastly, we'd like to welcome up Ms. Donna Tessier.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am sure you've got the gist now that most seniors, all seniors, are against the school taxes. When I signed the tax exempt for school, it did not state that if my property went over a certain amount, that it would be taxable. So therefore, there was no way of knowing that. And when we got our tax bill, it kind of hit us like, I thought we were exempt, but we're not. But on the paper, it doesn't say that if you go over a certain amount, that you have to pay taxes. I suggest that if you want to put a tax on a limit, that you write up new papers and tell the people when they sign them that if you go over a certain amount, then you will be expected to pay taxes. But those of us who never knew that that was a possibility has been hit hard. And it just doesn't seem fair that those of us who have had kids in school, paid our dues, paid our taxes, paid everything we were supposed to do, should have to pay more taxes, school taxes, for kids that are no longer with us. So I think the problem is the school tax exemption papers had no statement about your house being appraised at a certain amount, that school board taxes would be added. And if you want to do that, I suggest from here on, you make new exempt papers stating that if your taxes go over, if your appraisal goes over a certain amount, then you'll be subject to school tax. And the problem is, some people won't improve their homes because they can't afford it. And therefore, it's just losing battle. So I hope you have heard everybody and you take into consideration that seniors, just because my house raised in price doesn't mean I raised in money. So, I don't know where you expect me to get it from. But I thank you for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tessier. And then we did have one more who did not want to speak in front of the board, but asked us to read her request. So this is Ms. Carolyn Sammons Jackson of Winder, Georgia. And she said, I am 90 years old. My house is over 60 years old. I have paid school tax for many years, and my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren have all been educated in the Bexar County school system. I am in bad health and limited income, and I do not believe anyone 90 years old and have no children in the system should have to pay school tax. We have paid enough. And again, that is Ms. Carolyn Sammons Jackson of Winder, Georgia. Thanks to everyone who came and spoke, and then those of you guys who came to listen to those who spoke. We do want to let you guys know that we hear you. That's one of the reasons we started with the Carl Vinson Institute study earlier this year, so we can start that process. Sadly, it's a long process because it's not just our decision. Once we make the decision of what we'd like to see, we have to send it through at the state level through their legislation, and that takes about a year's process. So anything we do between now and the end of the year has to go through the state, go through next year's cycle, and then any tax exemption will take place in 2025 tax year, correct? Okay, so just to give you guys an idea, again, that's out of our control, that's the state, but know that we are working on it. We're gonna have a called board meeting in July to discuss the senior taxes, and that will be another good one to attend if you guys would like to. We don't have a date on that one, but we will post when that date is. Ms. Houston has gladly said that she would, after now or after?
Go ahead now.
Okay.
Could I just add one thing before we
Yeah.
move on to that? I know there were a lot of questions asked that we were not able to answer in person. I would appreciate it if everyone could make sure that you send us those questions and it's delivered to each of us, because I want to hear those, and I want us to be able to give a good response to you. I think there's been some other things that may have just been statements made tonight that need some clarification. Maybe some things that just got misunderstood and from here to there, but some inaccuracies, I think, that we can explain to some of you a little bit.
Actually, Ms. Houston's our Assistant Superintendent for Business Services, and she's been taking a few notes. We can't get into a question and answer piece because we'd be here all night, but she did want to give a few clarifications now, but I want to echo what Ms. Malou said. Please do send those to us because we want to get you the right answers and get you the answers. And again, the board is working on this. We definitely, they hear you, trust me on that. They definitely do.
Jordan, just one quick thing I'd like to address you all. First of all, thank you so much for coming. And there's one thing that was said that I would like to address. First of all, you do not have to pay money to file a complaint against your tax assessments. That is absolutely untrue. So if you've been told that, that is absolutely untrue. Anytime that you want to challenge those, you are welcome to do that. And I'm a real estate broker. If you need help, you can come to me at my office and I will help you. Never feel like you are, tied to those, or that you can't ask questions to people in your community to help you, because we are all, at the end of the day, community members, and we're all in this together. And we do, at the end of the day, we are your neighbors, and we care very deeply for you. So that's something that I wanted to clarify. It does not cost money to, challenge those assessments. And just as a real estate professional myself, it sounds like some of them may be wrong. So I just wanted to address that with you. So I care for you. I know all 8 people up here care for you. Dr. McMichael does. We are very, heartfelt about what you're saying. So if you need help, for me personally, Jordan's in real estate, just know that we care about you. You can challenge those assessments. This is a process and it takes time, but we do care very much for you, and anything that we can do to help you, we will do it. Okay?
Well, while we're doing that and before Jennifer gets started,
it's a downtown Winder. You come see me afterwards. I'll take care of it.
I want to say one thing before Jennifer gets started too. Nobody on this board realized that there was a $200,000 limit on the price of a house. That legislation was done over 30 years ago. And I'm old, but I wasn't on the board 30 years ago. So we are very much, this caught us by surprise as much as it did you, and we are gonna fix it. I promise you that. We're also gonna look at raising the limit of income that you can have to be exempt from it.
Yeah.
And I commit to you that I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that this is corrected. But it does take time. We're not like a speedboat in the Bexar County Board of Education. We're more like a battleship, and it takes a while to turn it around.
That's very true.
In general is like that.
Yes.
So Ms. Houston, I wanted you to shed some clarity.
This school board didn't, one 35 years ago did. Okay? And 35 years ago, $200,000 was a lot of money for a house in Bexar County. And $80,000 in income excluding Social Security and retirement was a lot of money too.
So it snuck up on us as well.
Brenda.
Ms. Houston?
Brenda.
So I would like to invite you all out to our public hearings. We have 3 on the millage rate. They're on June 22nd at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. and then also on June 29th at 1 p.m. There is so much misinformation going on that I would love to speak to you individually. I'll stay as long as I need to get all of your questions answered and to clarify a lot of the information that has been said tonight that maybe you got misinformation. The main thing is that you got your assessment in the mail. It is not what's going to be your taxes. That is from last year's millage rate. They're going to approve a millage rate tonight, so if y'all want to wait around and see what happens there, you're more than welcome to, but it's going to be less than the 17.881, and more than likely. And then also know that Governor Kemp gave us another exemption of $18,000. So that's going to lower your tax bill for schools another $200. So there's a lot of information I can give you at these public hearings. If y'all could come and I could shed some light on some of your questions and make you feel a little bit better. And like Mr. Raper said, It's going to be 2 years before we can get that exemption, but over the summer, we're going to be looking at it, and we're going to see how much it's going to, we have two constituents. We have to make sure our students are taken care of, but we also want to make sure our taxpayers are taken care of too. Right. So over the summer, we're going to be, I'm going to propose some different scenarios to see how much we can afford to up that exemption for our seniors.
Can you give those dates again?
Sure. So the dates are June 22nd at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. This will be in the newspaper also. June 29th at 1 p.m. And they'll be on our website. They'll be here. I think the one on June 29th might be out in the computer lab, but I'll get you back there.
This will be questions and answers.
I'm going to do a presentation, but I will take questions and answers afterwards, absolutely. Yep, I'll stay as late as I need to. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have a question. Is this what you're talking about as far as lowering, with the millage rates, et cetera, and the exemptions, blah, blah, blah? Is this part of the referendum that's going to be done for the November election for the ballot?
No, ma'am. It's going to take a lot longer to get there. Yes, ma'am. So we're just going to be looking at it over the summer.
Representative in legislature working on a bill now to be on the referendum regarding senior exemption.
Good.
So everybody look and vote this November.
Yeah, take a look at that. Sure. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Houston.
Thank you so much, Ms. Houston. Alrighty, at this time, we're gonna jump into our superintendent's department reports. Dr. Green had to step out, but he did not have anything further to add to the support services report. So next, Ms. Houston, do we have anything additional for the business services report? Okay.
All right, so for our ELOS, Educational Local Option Sales Tax, so for the month of May, we received $1,730,462. Now remember, this tax can only go towards capital improvements. It cannot go towards salaries or any sort of maintenance and operation, just towards buildings, transportation, buses, and also technology. As for our general fund, our total fund balance, $77 million, but of course that will be depleted as we go through the month. Not depleted, but it will go down. So this is not what's going to show up on our financials. Total revenues year to date, $159,251,000. Total expenditures year to date, $144,021,000. Our total revenues for the month of May is $8.9 million, and our total expenditures for the month of May is $13 million. As you can see, our target is 92% of the year, and our revenues are a little bit above that, and our expenditures are catching up to that. The next page is the detail for the general fund. And we'll go to our special revenue fund for the month of April. Special revenue, we brought in $21.3 million year to date, and we spent $20.8 million. For our capital projects, we received $17.4 million year to date, and we spent $38.5 million because we have the school under construction. For our debt service, year to date, $9.7 million received and $9.4 million expended. And that's, also, Ms. Stevens, you had asked about our fuel budget for 2023, and it is $1.3 million. And the average per gallon amount that they had to spend was $3.60.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Houston. Alrighty, Mr. Perno, anything for the system operations report? Thank you. Dr. Moten, anything with teaching and learning? Thank you, ma'am. Alrighty, Ms. Beggs, planning and personnel?
Nothing.
Nothing right now? Okay, Ms. Beggs. And Dr. Thompson with strategic projects? Thank you, sir. Alrighty, at this time, we're gonna jump into our new business. So Ms. Houston, regarding the bond resolution.
Okay. Thank you all. I'm going to hand you all 3 documents, and then I've got a little presentation that we, in the same format you're used to. These are the rating reports that we got along with the bond sale, as well as the final numbers, the result of the bond offering today. I want you just each to have these for reference, and then we'll all probably be a little easier walking through the presentation. Okay. Well, I'm going to report on the bond offering that was made this morning. This, of course, is a long time coming. These were bonds that were approved in March and that we really talked about going back into last year in order to fund continuing capital projects of the school district. We always start off with a few significant dates. June the 6th, of course, is today, which is the date that the bonds were offered into the market. The bond sale will close on the 22nd. Like all of your bonds, we make semi-annual interest payments, and then we are going to make annual principal repayment on these bonds. That will occur beginning on February 1st, 2028 through February 1st of 2042. These bonds have a little longer wait, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. A little longer term, maybe they don't really have a level amortization. We've back-weighted this in order to try to create an overall mostly level debt service payment when you take into account your existing outstanding debts. But the headline number here is that we sold the bond, or the bonds were sold today, excuse me, they were offered at competitive sale, and we achieved a all-inclusive rate, which takes into account interest, cost of issuance, all of that, of 3.89%. If we'll turn over to one more page, these were publicly offered bonds, and so when we go through that offering process, your disclosure counsel, Jim Woodward, who's here this evening, along with staff, put together a offering prospectus, which is like a prospectus if you are buying or selling a stock or mutual fund. It has a lot of information about the school district. We take that along with the school district's financials, and we get the bonds rated. These bonds were rated both by Moody's and Standard & Poor's, and each of the rating agencies upgraded the school district's underlying rating in conjunction with this bond sale. So the S&P rating moved from A+ up to AA-, which gets you into what's considered very, very high, the AA category rating. And the Moody's rating went from AA2 underlying up to AA1. And that is significant. I want to spend just a moment on that. One of the reasons that's significant is that is very rare air for a school district. In fact, I asked the analyst for Moody's, where are the other school districts, how many other school districts have a AA1 rating? There are 4 AAA rated school districts, which are Gwinnett, Fulton, Forsyth, and Cobb, and there are 2 AA1 school districts, which is Columbia County and now Barrow County. So you should be commended. That's in the top 6 in the state in terms of your credit rating out of the universe that Moody's rates, and they are the most used rating agency among school districts. The rating analysts, they cited the way you've managed your funds, particularly over the last 3 years, just prudent management, and also the planning that we've done for the future, right? They recognize that you have significant growth occurring and that our needs aren't ending right now, and that we've made some provision for how we're going to cover those needs, not just with this bond sale, but the things that the school district might need over a 5 or 10 year period. So I was very thrilled with how this came out, but again, congratulations. We got upgrades out of both rating agencies, which is fantastic. If we'll go to the next page, this is just a chart that shows interest rates in general. These are tax-exempt AAA interest rates, which is sort of considered the very top credit is AAA. And remember, by Moody's, we're 1 notch below that. But this is just a historical average, that navy line through the middle of the page, just to give you some idea of where, over the last, 30, 35 years, where tax-exempt rates have been. We sold bonds that mature between 5 all the way out to 19 years, and that red line represents where the market is currently. So the bonds were sold into an environment that is still below the historical average. We're certainly not where we were, 2 years ago, or even with our sale back in 2020. But we're still borrowing funds at what is below the historical average. So we're in a good environment for borrowing to the extent you need to. If we'll look at one more page, these bonds were offered at competitive sale, which means we make the bonds available to any underwriting firm who wants to provide an offer to purchase them. We had 13 different firms show up today and offer to purchase the bonds, and you can see there's a particular method to calculate their offer, and we had rates ranging from 3.79 up to about 3.89. So a 10 basis point spread with 13 offers is fantastic. I think this is probably the best response that I can remember us actually getting in terms of the number of firms that offered to purchase the bonds. But I was very pleased with that. The winning offer, these are what we call premium bonds. You go ahead to the next page, that's fine. These are called premium bonds, and so the investor, the underwriting firm, is paying us more than face value, which is sort of a normal convention in the municipal bond world. We're getting about 114 cents on the dollar for selling the bonds, and there's nothing magical. That's the math of how the bond math, how they've couponed the bonds. But we're getting about 114 cents on the dollar. And if we'll go to one more page, this is the net amortization. My eyes are just failing me a little bit, so I'm going to get out my paper. But you can see that this shows you the payment on this bond, sort of there in the left. And then you can see a column that says existing debt service. Those are our bonds that are already outstanding. And then on the far right, you can see what the school district owes, taking into account this debt plus the already existing debts. You can see we have a maximum payment of just over $11.9 million. There's sort of a 2-year period there where we're kind of between this SPLOST and into the next SPLOST, where we have slightly higher payments, and then we drop down to about 10.6 and then 10.3 million out there in the last 5 years. I should note this is just a portion of the bonds that were approved in March. We do have a potential second sale to the extent those bonds are needed. We've got some capacity to raise a little more money to continue your building program. At this point, this should fund about $51.3 million worth of construction. Again, we have the ability to come back and get some more. You also note that the principal on this bond issue, you can see it's really in the last 5 years, which we wrapped that around your existing debt to come up with a mostly level payment structure now. The remaining bonds we're going to be able to add in kind of a level fashion. And the reason we do that is we've taken a lot of interest rate risk off the table by selling those longer bonds. We have a lot more amortization on the next bond. We'll have sort of a shorter tenor. If you think about it, we'll be paying more over the full term instead of paying so much in the back end. But what we've designed to do, which is the strategy we've done over the last couple of bond sales, is try to get as close to a level overall payment structure on all your debt, knowing that as we go forward 10, 15, even 20 years from now, we're going to have to leave room for other things. To that notion, if we'll turn over one more page, this is just a snapshot of the sales tax. The sales tax has almost doubled in the last 5 years, which brings us to almost $20.2 million in collections now. And so if we'll go one more page, this is just a chart that compares the payment. That green is the new bond, the blue are the old bonds we had outstanding. You can see we've really got a pretty good margin of safety between what the sales tax is bringing in versus what our bond payments are each year. One of the things I know that was spoken about tonight is, we're extremely cognizant of potential property tax burdens, and these bonds do have an underlying property tax pledge. And so we don't ever want to get so close that even in a downturn, we wouldn't have the ability to service this bond exclusively from sales tax. And so I hope this chart gives you a lot of comfort that we can do that. One of the things you may look at this chart is, bringing in 20, we're paying out 11 or 12. The rest of that money is available for pay-as-you-go. What we've tried to do as a strategy is where we need to buy shorter term things, we want you to have pay-as-you-go type sales tax. We don't want to go borrow every time we need a bus or a whiteboard. We want to have some money that comes in each year to where you can buy sort of shorter lived assets with cash each year. and not be so pressed on our debt that that's, we're borrowing for every single capital expenditure we have to make. I'm going to talk to you in a moment as well. We do have some call options in our bonds, so if we ever feel like we're not amortizing principal fast enough and we want to pay off some debt, we've got the ability to do that in what I'd call sort of a laddered fashion, and I'll show you that in just a moment. If you look at one more page here, page 10, I just want to take us back to the same presentation we gave with the bond sale that happened back in 2020, just so we have a frame of reference of what our debt looked like then and how this same strategy has played out. You can see back then we had payments occurring between 23 and 2027. We haven't done anything. These payments are still there, but they were butting up against $10 million per year, and we were bringing in about 13. That sort of free cash flow number was about $3 million, and you can see maybe we had 4.5, 4.6 out beyond that. Now that we've grown to 20, we've really increased our capacity to do things as we need to. We've got a lot of room, and we've got really inexpensive debt is the other thing. It'd be one thing if we were putting out really long-term debt at very high interest rates, but the board was smart enough to borrow when interest rates were extremely low, and so we've got a very attractive cost of capital on these existing debts that are out there. If we look at page 11, this is just projecting forward the sales tax. This is SPLOST 7, which of course has already been approved. We'll begin at the end of the current sales tax. With no growth, we'd expect that to bring in right about $100 million, and we'll see how that performs. We've obviously got a few years to get there. But again, we're bringing in about $20 million per year at this point, and I know we've got a lot of use for that. As we look at page 12, and I promise I'm going to wrap up in just a moment, but I do want you just to have all the information about your bond sale. I mentioned that we have the ability to prepay certain of our bonds. Because investors pay us face value, pay us a premium above face value for our bonds, there's a period of time before they allow us to prepay it. If you think about the investor today, he's paying you 114 cents on the dollar. He's not going to let you pay him off at 100 tomorrow, right? They've got a period of time that the bond is non-callable. Because we've issued bonds every 2 or 3 years, those 10-year calls have now all aged, and we have old bonds that have run through that period. And so when I was saying, if at any point we feel like, we need to amortize more principal and save some interest expense, you can see here our 2012 bonds are now to their call date. We could pay off 6.6 million of those at any time without penalty, whenever we're ready to, if we ever felt like we didn't have a need for our cash and wanted to make some interest savings. And that same pattern will occur in 2026, 2027, 2030, and now 2033. So we're going to have opportunities if we ever feel like we want to save some interest expense to shorten up our debt. What we don't get to do is go ask to extend our debt, right? So we can always short, we can't go longer. And we also monitor these for the chance to refinance debt. Right now, we're not in an environment where we can make savings, but we, in the past, some of our veteran board members know we've saved money by refinancing bonds before. The one thing I would say on that is, if you look at that 2012 bond, for instance, if Jennifer called me up and said, we were talking at the board meeting last night about paying off our debt, I'd tell her, let's think mighty hard about it, because those bonds are outstanding at a rate of 2.12%, and at Georgia Fund 1, we're earning 5% on our cash today. So, some of these debts, it's great for us to get out from under them, but at the moment, we're actually ahead by keeping some of these bonds outstanding. I know that's sort of incongruent to a lot of us who want to pay off debt frequently, but we've borrowed and locked in such low cost of debt for long term that we're really in a great spot as a school district right now in terms of our capital planning and our options that we have, both to do those pay-as-you-go projects, to fund the larger things directly with bond sales, and also to earn interest on our cash, to the extent we want to hold it for a moment and just see what happens. So we're in great shape. The very last page of this, we talk about this all the time, but some of you may not remember this. Anytime we issue a general obligation bond, there's a tax levy resolution that goes before the Board of Commissioners. I know there's been plenty of confusion about who does what with taxes this evening. But it's exactly the same way as your M&O tax bill. You recommend a levy. The Board of Commissioners are the tax collecting entity on behalf of everyone. And so there will be a document that's called a tax levy resolution that will be on their agenda on June the 13th. It's your document. It's just something that we have to ask them to do as a function of their office. Again, we don't ever intend to levy a property tax, but it's a state law requirement that that levy is in place should it ever be needed to be called upon. So we have to do that in order to issue the general obligation bonds. But I have said a lot, but are there any questions? I'm happy to address anything you might be curious about.
Actually, you've done your usual great job, so I actually understand.
Very
It's
thorough.
okay.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. I know I tell you every time, but y'all have allowed me to work for you for a long time, and I really do appreciate it.
We will need one action item tonight. The first one, the tax levy resolution, we talked with the clerk of the county. It's on their agenda for the 13th. They have it in front of them, sent the final version tonight. They're all squared away. They've seen this before from previous transactions and their questions today. So I expect any questions that we need to go through these. That should be fine moving forward. But if I hear anything, constant contact with their attorneys, I'll let you know. There should be an issue with 13th. But the action item tonight, by the way, I'm Jim McCord, the folks that don't know who I am. I'm the bond counsel and disclosure counsel for the school district. I'm working with the school district on all your bond transactions. What's presented tonight is a bond resolution. It's document drafted, basically provides all the terms of these bonds as Tom discussed. By approving it tonight, we'll lock in these rates. The Jeffries being the purchaser of the bonds, and they won't change at this point. And then it allows to close on June 22nd. So those funds will come in at closing on the 22nd. But this allows us to lock those rates tonight, and then they won't change. This will be April 4th. So we'll just need to action our motion to approve the bond resolution. And that's all we need for this.
All right, any other questions before we request that motion? All righty, so at this time, can I get a motion to approve the bond resolution as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Stevens, Ms. Maloof, all in favor? All righty, motion passes. Thank you, guys. All right, now we're gonna jump into old business. Ms. Houston with our other funds budget presentation.
Yep, that's all I need right there. This is our other funds budget. This comprises our federal funds that have a lot of red tape on them, and we can't use them for just anything. Also, our capital projects and our debt service. Do you have any questions?
Okay, you gonna vote now, later?
I'd love for you to vote now.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the other funds budget?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Stevens, Ms. Kelly, all in favor? All right, motion passes. Thank you, ma'am. Now for our millage rate.
How about you go just back to that, PDF? The property tax scenarios 2024. I think that's all we need for tonight, and if y'all have any questions, I can look them up. So we're looking at the proposed millage rates for 2020, calendar year 2023, 2024 fiscal year. And I've given you the different rates, or the different millages, the estimated taxes we would receive on each millage rate, the increase, decrease in budgeted revenues. So we budgeted revenues, and if you go with the rollback, we would lose $1.7 million more than what we budgeted. The projected net income or loss with that millage rate, the advertised tax increase, so if we went with the rollback, it would be 0. If we went with 17.881, it would be 20.37. And then the taxes, that it would be on a $200,000 home with a homestead exemption, which is just $2,000. That's
So,
all I really
that's
have. If
it,
y'all
okay.
have any questions.
Perfect. So at this time, we will discuss thoughts, questions, concerns regarding the different levels, millage rate options.
So under the cover budget option, and I see that's separate from the extended salary scale. So so in the cover budget line item 5.298, does that mean that we can't extend the salary scale, or that we just add those two numbers together?
So yes, you can still extend the salary scale, and then our projected net loss would be 3.8 million plus 1.9 million, so about 5.8 million. And we would take that out of our fund balance.
I'd like to point out something here. If we do the millage at 5.785, which would include the extended salary scale.
You mean 15?
What'd I say? I'm sorry.
5. You said
Oh, yeah,
5.7.
seriously, I have to take these glasses off so I can see.
Everybody would be real happy if we went back to 5.
I'm sure they would. Okay, 15,785, okay? Or we cover the original loss with that and we do 16.295. If I subtract the 1271 from the 1231, that's $40 a year on a $200,000 house, which is less than $3.50 a month, if my math is correct. However, it would save the school system $3,891,000. Am I right?
Correct, something close to that, yes.
And we would not be taking money out of the reserves. And I have had this concern about reserves for a long time, because I've been on this board a long time, and I've been through two major recessions. And the way things are going right now, I have no faith that things are gonna get cheaper. And we're faced with opening a new school this year, which means more teachers, more bus drivers, more buses, more equipment, more capital expenditures, more of everything. And right now, we have about a 3-month reserve if we don't take anything out. Am I correct?
A little over 3 months, yes,
Right,
ma'am.
Right. So in a worst-case scenario, if the economy goes south even further than it is now, prices continue to rise, I'm really not comfortable with anything less than the reserve that we have. And this would be getting us pretty much to where we've already done, saved money. I would also point out that these reserves are there and we're not adding to them, we're taking away from them. We did that last year also. So, I don't know what the pleasure of the board is, but at $3.50 a month between those two, and we come out with a positive balance, which is basically revenue neutral. It's it's just keeping our savings at $4,524 more than they are now. That makes sense to me.
But I don't know why we're going, saying taxes on a 200,000, because as everybody knows that got the reassessments, there's no $200,000 homes anymore.
Yes, ma'am, I just had to choose somewhere, so you can, if it's
Right, so
400, you
so
just
figure
multiply
400.
times 2.
It went up way more than whatever you're saying.
Well, and,
I don't know if yours did, but ours did.
well, yeah.
So to save $40 or whatever
That's what
you're
I was about
saying.
to ask. So if say the taxes were based on a $300,000 home and these numbers went up, would those deficits go down?
No, this is what the tax digest is. This is just a sample.
This is not a formula, this is just a sample.
Right, this on the way over to the right-hand side, the taxes on a $200,000 home. That's just a sample.
So, So if we did that and we just doubled that to 4, that would be $7,
Right.
right? Instead of $350.
Yes.
The easiest thing to do with it.
And 400,000 is about the average probably in Bear County right now.
I heard somebody in the
You
crowd
got
say 375 was the average, so
Right.
yes, ma'am.
So, I'm just saying, you know, if y'all,
How does sales tax calculate into this?
We can't use sales tax for the general fund, so that's in the capital projects funds only. We have to use that for buildings and buses and technology.
So it doesn't affect, I'm just trying to make sure I understand this number.
Ms. Stevens made reference to the fact that the general fund budget, we took from the general fund budget last year to 2 million something?
We budgeted for it, but we really, when the year ended up, we were in the.
So we didn't take it?
Mm-mm.
We budgeted for it, but we didn't take it?
Budget for it, didn't take it.
And in addition to not taking it, the fund balance is still greater than it was last year, this year?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's grown.
It's grown.
right,
To Lynn's point, which I really think is an excellent point, would sales tax affect that?
No.
Still no?
No.
Still no,
No.
okay.
Two separate buckets.
Is this sample, Jennifer, that you've given us, the tax on 200,000 home, is that just based on the school system's millage, or is that their total?
Just the school system's
So that's
millage.
not their actual,
no.
Correct.
so it'd be more than the.
Well, the overall taxes, that's a county's issue, Alex.
Alex is like, man, I came to the wrong meeting.
I
We
liked
love
the
you,
moratorium
Alex.
idea.
All I'm saying is, revenue neutral for us, so.
We love you, Alex.
Also,
You're our friend.
so we talk about, Lynn's mentioned this a couple times, and I get it. I mean, I would be very nervous if my personal savings were less than 3 months' worth of expenses. But is it realistic? I'm just dead serious question. Is it realistic that our revenue goes to 0 for 3 months? Is that a possibility?
It has
That
come really
yes, we've
close.
had to borrow money because the tax digest might have went out a little bit later than it was. Since I've been here, the first year I was here, we didn't have enough fund balance to cover 3 months of expenditures, and the tax digest went out just a little bit later than it was supposed to, and we weren't able to make it to December, so we had to do a tax anticipation note, and so we had to borrow money to make it to December.
So that happens. It can happen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
during the recession, a lot of districts, we only had to do it the one time, but a lot of districts had to do it pretty much over and over and over again.
But we have a little bit more than 3 months, correct?
We do, yes.
How much more? Just about.
5 million.
Yeah, it was down. I took over, it was around 5, wasn't it?
You know, in my line of work, I'm as concerned about a recession as the next person, but when I try to think about this though, I really feel that overtaxation is as much as a reason for the recession as anything else, you know? So I try to consider that because people are being taxed to death.
Yeah.
And so it's really creating a burden, you know?
And most of the people that have emailed me have wanted it sort of in the 15, they would be okay with that.
Well, I
So-
mean, interest rates, like when in my job, you know, prices are coming down because when you compute the taxes and insurance, they can't afford their house payments, you know, because Lynn and I were talking about that, the insurance is, I mean, the taxes are so high. So, I mean, the taxes are benefiting in the people not being able, you know, to pay as much as anything. So it's just a hard push, you know.
So Jennifer, could you specifically talk us through, the 15.298 millage, that scenario?
But you were gonna tell us how much we had?
It's about 3.75 months.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we have now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now talk us through the 15.298.
Yes.
So the 15.298 millage rate, this would cover our budget. Okay, so we budgeted a $3.8 million loss. So this is exactly what we budgeted for. The 15.298 is exactly what I budgeted for. So it would cover It would do exactly what I presented to you in the budget. It would give us a deficit of $3.8 million, and our fund balance would have to absorb that if that actually happens during the year.
Okay, go up one to the 15.5, what would that do?
The 15.5 is just one between the 15.298 and 15.785. It would pay for maybe, it would pay for $800,000 if you extended the salary scale of the $1.9 million expense. It would pay for $800,000 of that.
And the 15.78 would cover the salary scale, and the net loss would be almost the same.
Correct. So it would give us the same net loss, but she would be able to cover that extended the salary scale.
The same budget that we were.
But if we stayed at
budgeting
15.298.
It would give us the money.
We
to
still
cover
pay for the extended salary schedule. We're still over 3.5 months, or right around 3.5
We would still be over 3 months
Over
of
3
fund
months at
balance.
least.
Correct.
I'm sorry, John, I was talking. Give me that again.
If we go with the 15.298 millage rate, and then we choose to cover the extended salary schedule out of our fund balance, we're still well over 3 months supply in our fund balance.
And we're only passing a 2.98 tax increase versus a 6.26 to the taxpayers, correct?
Right.
That's what you're saying?
Correct.
But then again, we're all worried about fund balance and keeping money, you know,
Well, but
making sure we have that rainy day money, you know.
But she said even if we
still
do
have-
that, we
you
still
still
have
have
a
over
3
3
months.
months?
You'd have over 3 months still, yes, ma'am.
Almost 4 months for the 3.75.
Almost 4, and we're required
You'd
to
cut
keep
into that a
2.
little bit, so we might be at 3.6.
We're required to keep 2.
You are, best practices is 2,
2.
at least 2,
You like 4.
of course.
Yep.
But
And we may have that with the increases.
because once the recession hits, the state starts cutting education first, and we need to be able to support our teachers and not lay them off or do furloughs.
But maybe with the 200 going to 300 and above, because we know that's really not legitimate, maybe we could be a little closer to 4.
Mhm.
One, I don't know why we have to look at teachers first. There's other areas that come out of our budget. And we also have to look at the people that came. I mean, we're on a budget, they're on a budget. The plus for us is we have the ability to go get money. Do they have that same ability that the school system does? I mean, for us, it's a balancing act.
Again, I would go back to what I have said about cutting anybody. We are lean and mean as it is at the central office, and our administrators and our school system and our teachers. There are tons of things we need to be doing that we're not doing, and as we continue to grow, that's just gonna be added to that. So, you know, we can do this, but if there is a recession, and if we can continue to have this growth, how many programs do we wanna cut?
We've been in a recession.
Well, I'm saying if it
Ask
grows.
Clay Kelly, we've been in a recession.
Oh, I agree. I agree. But I'm simply saying, we need to be very careful. And if I'm looking at the difference in $400,000 house between those two numbers, and that works out to $7 a month, which would be, by the way, less for folks who are at 300 or 250 or whatever, or 200, and we have some 200 and under houses in Barrow, not many, but a few.
5 of them.
They need work.
Yeah, maybe.
But I'm just saying, you know, I've always been conservative about this, but at the end of the day, my first obligation is to the children in this county and seeing to it that they get the best education we can possibly give them, given the resources that we have. And I'm comfortable with 3 months at least in the bank, because of things that have come up. And Jennifer mentioned we had to do a TAN, the first tax anticipation note. I said I wasn't gonna do acronyms now. Tax anticipation note every year for the first 5 or 6 years I was on this board. So, yeah, it can happen.
And I think it's safe to say we all agree 3 months in our fund balance is what makes us all happy. I don't think any of us want to go below that. So at this time, we just need a motion of what would we like to set as the tentative?
Before you do that, Vince asked a question about, could this happen? Tom, Now, I'm not a doomsday sayer, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do one of these two, but in 2007, we had to refinance our bond so we could pay our debt.
That's right, we did.
And we had 3 months at that time?
No, no, sir.
That's what my question is. I understand we had to borrow money, but we have not experienced a situation where we needed more than 3 months reserves. Is that?
No, we just cut what we were spending. We furloughed teachers.
Does that question make sense?
It makes sense, but I cannot answer that because I wasn't here back in the recession
But
times.
we know that we didn't have 3 months worth when we had to go borrow.
We did not.
So I'm not saying that we don't have to borrow money. You hadn't had to borrow money in the past. My question is, have we ever experienced a situation where 3 months wasn't enough? That's the question.
We didn't have 3 months.
I understand that. I understand that. That's not the question. The question is, have we ever had a situation where 3 months wasn't enough? That's the question.
I believe probably in 2009, for maybe a 3 or 4 year period, when we had to do the furloughs and we had to RIF people, that I think that 3 months probably would have helped us through quite a bit, but we may have had to do, we may have still had to do some sort of furloughs, but I think it probably would have covered us for those 4 or 5 years.
So worst case scenario that anybody in this room is aware of, 2009, you feel like 3 months, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I just want to understand. You feel like 3 months would have gotten us through?
We would have still had cuts.
We would have still had some few cuts, but not what we had to do. Yeah, I can answer that better because I can go back to the austerity cuts that the state did, and I could add those up for you and tell you how much that would have covered.
So, right now, does everyone on the board agree that no matter what millage rate we choose, we need to extend the salary scale, or is anyone against that? Is everybody for extending this, and that's to 30 years?
Yes.
Okay, so we're all in agreement that no matter what millage rate we choose, we want to extend the teacher salary schedule to 30 years. Okay, so now that we've got that, we need to decide how we're gonna pay for that. Is it coming out of our fund balance? Is it getting rolled into a millage rate? Okay, so that's where we're at. What are you guys thinking? At 15.298 with us paying for that $1.9 million cost, we are still over 3 months in our fund balance.
Over 3.5.
Or 3.5.
And that's what we had planned to take out of our fund balance, correct?
Yes.
Well, it'd be 1.9 over what we had originally planned.
Right.
But we can't absorb that, I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
But even at that, we're still at 3.75 months in the bank, correct?
The one thing I will point out
3.5,
on the salary
Yeah.
scale is, once that's done, you can't go back.
Right.
You gotta plan for the future too, when doing that, so.
Well, maybe the compromise would be 15.5.
That's what I was saying.
Well, I think pulling that out of our fund is probably the better idea because we still have to look at at the taxpayers and, increasing the tax digest by 2.98% is plenty. Because that's plenty. I mean, if we're gonna have to pull it out one way or the other, I think we may as well just do it at 2.98 versus 4.3 if we've gotta pull it out one way or the other. Because even at 15.2, at 15.5, we've still got to pull it out, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My preference would be
That's not
15.298, and we cover the 1.9 out of our fund balance.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that, because to Lynn's point, if it goes under 3, I'm not good with that, but as long as that's at 3.75, I'm fine with that.
I'll make a motion, we go with the 15.298 millage.
Second.
Ms. Kelly made the motion, Ms. Bramlett seconded it, all in favor?
I'm thinking.
You want us to keep our hands up so you're going to think of
Unanimous?
Yes.
Alrighty, motion passes. Our tentative millage rate will be 15.298 with an additional 1.9 million coming out of our fund balance to extend our teacher's salary schedule to 30 years.
I want to, on behalf of the teachers and staff, I want to thank y'all for extending that. That will go a long way showing the confidence
Retaining
and
them.
support for our teachers and hiring and retention also.
That goes into effect,
Thank
would
you.
go into effect when? The third, the
Goes in
scale?
next year.
When do
Next year.
the
Thank
next meeting is in June, these are the ones we talk about, the homestead exemption, and that's another time.
July.
That's gonna be a special call meeting in July, and I'll get you all the information there. I got some little snippets, but I'll wait until July to share those with you, but, yeah. So this millage rate will be on the September tax bills, and it'll be less than the 17.88, which everybody got on their assessment, so seniors should be real happy.
I think they'll be
about
happy.
what you did. Jordan, can you publicly explain that real quick, what that means?
Yes, so speaking out there to the public who are here in person and those watching online or who will watch a recorded version, the tax assessments that went, ooh, I'm echoing. The tax assessments that went out were based on last year's millage rate, which was 17.881. Okay, we are now tentatively agreeing to roll back the millage rate to 15.298, which means your tax bill will be lower, a good bit lower than what your assessment is. Any other input?
As long as your house wasn't reassessed.
Correct.
If your house
You
gets
might.
reassessed,
Yeah. You might also point out that, the tax assessor has to, they can go down there and appeal their tax assessments, and they need to make sure that when they do that, they need to make sure that the people who are on that appeals board are explaining to them why their taxes went up. And it better be a good reason, otherwise they need to lower them.
And they have until June 15th or 16th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
And
I hope everybody that was here tonight goes down there and takes their neighbors with them.
Yes, ma'am.
And that didn't take into account the 18,000, what they sent us.
Right.
The newspaper is still going to say there is an advertised tax increase because they have to,
Right.
even though technically we are rolling the millage rate
We're
back.
actually rolling hours back, but
That's correct.
the law, state law says we have to still say it's a tax.
Yeah, we are lowering our millage rate over 2 mills, but it will show a 2.98% increase. Okay? And that, again, that allows us to cover our budget and extend our teacher salary schedule to 30 years, which we're very excited about. Okay, so at this time, I need a motion for authorization for committees to meet.
So moved.
Second. Ms. Kelly, Mr. Bailey, all in favor? Artie? Motion passes. Alrighty, at this time, we're gonna go into executive session to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
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 Alrighty, guys, if you will give us the room for a few minutes. Alrighty, guys, welcome back. At this time, can I get a motion to approve the personnel report as presented?
Second.
Ms. Bramlett, Ms. Stevens, all in favor? Alrighty, motion passes. Notice the upcoming dates, and if there's nothing else to discuss, we're adjourned.
Thank you.